At 11:47 hours on August 17, 1943, Second Lieutenant James Harlow checked his fuel gauge and saw 25% remaining. He was 80 miles inside Germany, alone, with no idea how he'd gotten there. Below him at 15,000 feet, 40 Messerschmitt Bf-109 fighters dove on a formation of B-17 flying fortresses. The bombers had no fighter protection. They were alone. 3 exploded in the first 90 seconds. Orange fireballs bloomed against blue sky. Pieces of aluminum and men tumbled earthward. Harlow's hand moved to his throttle. He had 2 choices: turn back toward England, conserve fuel, try to survive, or shove the throttle forward and dive into 40 German fighters with 6,000 rounds of ammunition and 22 minutes of fuel remaining. His compass had been broken all morning. He'd ignored the warning. Now 27 men were dead in 3 bombers, and more would die unless someone did something. Harlow shoved the throttle forward. The second Schweinfurt raid was a mathematical nightmare dressed up as a strategic necessity. 230 B-17 flying fortresses were attacking ball-bearing factories 400 miles inside Germany. The factories produced 67% of Germany's ball bearings. Destroy them, and you cripple tank production, aircraft production, everything with moving parts. The logic was sound. The cost was catastrophic. American fighter escorts in August 1943 had one fatal limitation: range. P-47 Thunderbolts could fly 425 miles before fuel reserves forced them to turn back. Schweinfurt was 400 miles from England. The math left no room for hope. Fighters escorted bombers to the German border, then abandoned them for the final 150 miles. German fighters knew this. They waited. Every raid followed the same pattern. American escorts turned back at the exact same point every time. Doctrine was doctrine. Physics was physics. Empty fuel tanks killed you just as dead as German cannons. The Luftwaffe watched American fighters peel away at the border. Then they swarmed the undefended bombers with methodical German efficiency. The first Schweinfurt raid happened in July. 60 B-17s lost, 600 men dead or captured. The second raid would be worse. Intelligence predicted 80-plus bomber losses. Fighter Command accepted it. Strategic Air Command accepted it. The factories had to be destroyed. The cost was calculated, documented, approved. 230 bombers would take off. Maybe 150 would come home. The missing 80 would carry 800 men into German prisoner camps or German graves. Everyone knew the numbers. Everyone accepted them. War was mathematics written in blood. Second Lieutenant James Harlow sat in the cockpit of his P-47 Thunderbolt at RAF Horsham St at 06:45 hours, watching his crew. Chief finish pre-flight checks. Harlow was 19 years old. Farm kid from Cedar Rapids, Iowa. 127 total flight hours. 0 combat missions. This was his first. Staff Sergeant Mike Torres climbed down from the wing, walked to Harlow's cockpit, leaned in close. "Lieutenant, that compass is acting strange." Harlow glanced at the instrument panel. The compass needle sat at 045 degrees, northeast. Seemed fine. "What's wrong with it?" Torres tapped the glass. The needle wobbled, settled back to 045. "Sluggish. Bearing might be sticky. Should get it checked." Harlow looked at his watch. 06:48. Briefing in 12 minutes. Flight departure in 96 minutes. No time to swap compasses. Besides, they'd be flying formation. He wouldn't need to navigate independently. Formation leader had the navigation equipment. Everyone else just followed. "It'll be fine," Harlow said. "We're flying formation anyway." Torres studied him for 3 seconds. "Your call, sir. Just saying it's not reading right." Harlow nodded. Torres walked away. The compass sat on the instrument panel, lying quietly. Harlow was the youngest pilot in the 56th Fighter Group. The other pilots called him Lucky. Not a compliment. Lucky because he hadn't died yet in training. He'd washed out of bomber training because of motion sickness, barely qualified for fighters, had 3 training accidents. Gear-up landing in May, mid-air collision in June, minor. Clipped another trainer's wing during a formation practice. Engine fire in July, forgot to set mixture properly on startup. Survived all 3 through luck, not skill. The other pilots knew it. Flight instructors knew it. Harlow knew it. But the Army Air Forces needed pilots. Needed them desperately. Standards dropped. Harlow got his wings. Got assigned to the 56th. Got a P-47 and orders to escort bombers into Germany. Now he sat in that P-47, waiting to find out if his luck would hold for one more mission. Mission briefing at 07:15 hours. Colonel Hubert Zemke stood at the front of the room, pointer in hand, map of Germany on the wall behind him. Gentlemen, your mission is simple. Escort the bombers to the German border. When fuel hits 40%, you turn back. No exceptions. Harlow raised his hand. Zemke looked at him. Lieutenant? Sir, why don't we... Zemke cut him off. Because physics, Lieutenant. You can't fly on empty tanks. The bombers are on their own after the border. We can't help them. The other pilots laughed. Harlow's face burned. He sat down. Zemke continued. The bombers will fly alone for 150 miles. German fighters will attack them. Many bombers will be lost. This is expected. This is accepted. Your job is to get them as far as possible. 40% fuel means you turn back. Am I clear? 32 voices answered. Yes, sir. Zemke looked directly at Harlow. Am I clear, Lieutenant? Yes, sir, Ragoff, at 08:12 hours. 16 P-47s in flights of 4. Harlow flew number 4 position, tail end Charlie, last aircraft in the formation. His flight leader was Captain Robert Henderson. The other pilots called Henderson Hardball. By the book, no risks. 32 missions, 0 kills. Henderson flew perfect formation, followed every order, came home every time. Harlow tried to match his precision. Failed. His P-47 wandered. Too far left, overcorrect right, too far right, overcorrect left. Henderson's voice crackled over the radio. 4, tighten it up. Harlow adjusted throttle, pulled closer. Nearly collided with number 3. Henderson again. 4, if you can't fly formation, go home. Harlow said nothing, locked his eyes on number 3's wingtip. Maintained position. His hands sweated inside his leather gloves. The formation crossed the English Channel at 08:43 hours. First sight of France below. Harlow had never seen enemy territory before. Never fired his guns in combat. Never been shot at. The theoretical became real. Down there, Germans waited. Germans with radar, with anti-aircraft guns, with fighters faster and more maneuverable than his P-47. His stomach clenched. He forced himself to breathe slowly. In through nose, out through mouth. Training instructor's advice. Control your breathing. Control your fear. It didn't work. He was still terrified. First enemy contact at 09:27 hours. The bomber formation appeared ahead. 230 B-17s in combat boxes. Staggered altitudes, overlapping fields of fire. Beautiful and fragile. German flak began. Black puffs at 22,000 feet. Harlow's P-47 shook from nearby explosions. Metal fragments rang against the fuselage. Henderson's voice. Stay in formation. Don't chase the flak. 2 B-17s took direct hits. One lost its right wing, tumbled. The other's nose section disappeared in a black explosion. Both fell. 18 men in those bombers. Harlow watched them fall, felt sick, swallowed hard, kept flying. The turnback point came at 11:24 hours. Henderson's voice. Flight, fuel check. Number 2 reported, 40%. Number 3 reported, 40%. Harlow checked his gauge, 40% exactly. Henderson keyed his radio. All aircraft, RTB on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark. The formation banked west. Harlow banked what he thought was west. His compass read 270 degrees, due west. Perfect. He followed the needle. Nobody noticed that number 4 was separating from formation. Nobody noticed that Harlow's P-47 was turning northwest instead of west. His compass read 270, but the bearing was stuck. The actual heading was 285 degrees, 15 degrees off. The error compounded with every mile. Harlow flew alone into Germany. 12 minutes later, he noticed something wrong. No other P-47s visible. He should be in formation. Should see Henderson ahead, number 2 and 3 on either side. He checked 6 o'clock. Nothing. Checked 10 o'clock, 2 o'clock. Empty sky. Radio call. Lead, this is 4. I've lost visual. Static answered. He tried again. Henderson, this is Harlow. Where are you? More static. He was out of radio range. Impossible. 12 minutes of flying shouldn't put him out of range, unless he wasn't flying toward England. He checked his fuel gauge. 25%. Should be 35% after 12 minutes of cruise. He'd been flying full throttle. Nervous habit. Burned more fuel than formation cruise. 25% meant maybe 22 minutes remaining. The math frightened him. He pulled out his map, checked his compass. Compass read 270 degrees, west. But the sun was wrong. Late morning sun should be behind him if he was flying west. The sun was to his left, south. Which meant he wasn't flying west. He was flying northwest. The compass lied. Torres was right. The bearing was stuck. Harlow checked his watch. 11:36 hours. He'd been flying the wrong direction for 12 minutes. At 350 miles per hour, 70 miles. He wasn't near the French border. He was 80 miles inside Germany. The realization hit like flak. Fuel, 25% remaining. Position, 80 miles inside Germany. Correct heading to England, 245 degrees southwest. Distance to safety, approximately 180 miles. Math. 180 miles divided by 350 miles per hour equals 31 minutes flying time. Fuel remaining, 22 minutes. He could not reach England. Simple physics, simple mathematics. He was going to crash or bail out in occupied territory. 2 options. Option 1, turn southwest, fly until fuel runs out, bail out over occupied France. Chance of survival, 40% if he landed safely and evaded capture. Option 2, turn southwest, try to reach Allied lines, probably crash short. Chance of survival, 20%. He thought about his father. Farmer, practical man. His father's advice echoed. When you're in a hole, stop digging. Harlow had been digging for 12 minutes. Time to stop. He banked southwest toward England. Accepted he'd bail out over France, hoped the resistance found him before the Germans did. Then he saw them. 11:47 hours. Movement at 10 o'clock low. He looked down. 15,000 feet below. The bomber formation heading to Schweinfurt. But something was wrong. Black dots diving on the bombers from above. German fighters, 40-plus Messerschmitt Bf-109s. Coordinated attack, coming from the sun, altitude advantage. The bombers were alone. No American fighters protecting them. The first pass began. 6 Bf-109s dove through the bomber formation. 20mm cannon fire. Visible tracers. One B-17 exploded. Direct hit to the bomb bay. Orange fireball. Pieces falling. Second. B-17 lost both engines on the right wing, dropped away smoking. Third, B-17's wing folded. Aircraft tumbled. 90 seconds. 3 bombers dead. 27 men gone. Harlow watched the German fighters climb back to altitude. Methodical. Professional. Devastating. The bombers fired back. 50 caliber tracers arced toward the Bf-109s, but bomber gunners couldn't stop organized fighter attacks. Defensive fire was desperation, not solution. Harlow checked his fuel. 24%. 1 minute burned watching men die. Distance to England, 180 miles. He could not reach safety. He was going to bail out no matter what happened next. Question: does he bail out now or later? If now, he survives. Maybe. If later, he can do something first. The math. 40 German fighters below. 1 American fighter above. Odds 40 to 1. Ammunition 425 rounds per gun. 6 guns. 2,550 rounds total. Fuel 24%, approximately 21 minutes. He could fight for maybe 15 minutes before reserve fuel forced bailout. He remembered his gunnery instructor, Lieutenant Davis. Davis taught deflection shooting, energy management, combat tactics, but Davis also said something else. The most dangerous pilot isn't the most skilled. It's the one the enemy doesn't expect. Surprise is worth more than skill. Those German fighters weren't expecting him. They thought all American escorts turned back. They were focused on the bombers. Nobody was watching 6 o'clock high. He had complete surprise. 1 pass, maybe 2 before they reacted. Question: how much damage can one P-47 do in 2 passes? Harlow didn't know, but he knew 27 men just died. Knew more would die in the next 5 minutes unless someone disrupted the German attack pattern. He was the only someone available. He checked his position. 23,000 feet altitude. Germans at 18,000 feet. Bombers at 15,000. He had 5,000 feet of altitude advantage. Checked gun switches, armed. Checked gun sight, illuminated. Throttle, full forward. Trim, nose down. His hands shook. He was terrified. 99% chance he died in the next 5 minutes. But 27 men were already dead. More were dying right now. He could bail out, save himself, watch from his parachute as German fighters slaughtered the bomber formation. Or he could do something. Probably die doing it. But do something. Harlow rolled inverted, pulled the stick back toward his chest. The P-47's nose dropped toward Earth. The aircraft accelerated. 350 miles per hour, 400, 450, 480. Wind screamed past his canopy. Altimeter unwinding. 22,000 feet, 21,000, 20,000. The German fighters grew larger in his windscreen. He picked a target, trailing Bf-109 in the second flight. The Bf-109 pilot didn't see him. Nobody saw him. 19,000 feet, 500 miles per hour, 18,500 feet, range 800 yards, still closing. Harlow's finger rested on the trigger. 600 yards. The gun sight pipper touched the Bf-109's tail. 400 yards. Harlow pulled the trigger. 6 50 caliber machine guns erupted, 72 rounds per second. The recoil shook Harlow's P-47. Tracers reached out like orange fingers. Every 5th round glowed. The stream of bullets walked up the Bf-109's fuselage. Metal sparked. The canopy shattered. Engine cowling tore apart. The Bf-109 exploded. 1 second it was an aircraft. The next second, it was pieces. Orange fireball. Black smoke. Debris scattered across 300 yards of sky. A section of wing tumbled past Harlow's canopy. He flinched. Pulled the stick back hard. The P-47 pulled out of the dive. 7 Gs pressed him into his seat. His vision grayed at the edges. His G-suit inflated, squeezed his legs, forced blood back to his brain. Vision cleared. He was at 16,000 feet, climbing. Speed, 420 miles per hour. Behind him, 1 German fighter burned as it fell toward Earth. The other Bf-109s scattered. Radio chatter erupted. Harlow didn't speak German, but he heard the panic. Sharp voices, urgent calls. The tight formation discipline broke. Fighters that were attacking bombers pulled off attacks. They turned, climbed, searching for the threat. Searching for American fighters, plural. They expected a squadron. They didn't expect 1 fighter. 1 P-47 shouldn't attack 40 Bf-109s. It was suicide. Which meant there had to be more. The Germans looked for them. Looked everywhere. Found nothing. Just 1 P-47 climbing away. Harlow reached 19,000 feet. Throttled back. Checked his fuel. 22%. Checked his 6 o'clock. 3 Bf-109s climbing toward him, but still 2,000 feet below. He had time. Maybe 30 seconds before they reached firing position. The other German fighters were reforming at 17,000 feet, trying to restore order, trying to organize. Harlow watched them. He should run now. Training doctrine was clear. Hit and run. Use altitude advantage. Extend away. Escape. But escape meant flying southwest toward England on 22% fuel. He'd already done that math. He couldn't reach England. Running just meant dying somewhere over France instead of here. If he was going to die anyway, he might as well make it count. He rolled inverted, pulled through, dove toward the reforming German fighters. Target selection happened in 2 seconds. He picked the forming leader, Bf-109 at the front of the loose formation. If he killed the leader, the formation would stay disrupted. Longer disruption meant more time before they resumed attacking bombers. Dive angle, 45 degrees. Speed building, 460 miles per hour. Range, 1,000 yards, closing fast. The German leader saw him coming. Broke hard left. Violent turn. The Bf-109's wings went vertical. Harlow followed. Pulled lead. Aimed where the target would be in 2 seconds, not where it was now. Deflection shooting. Lieutenant Davis drilled it into every student. Lead the target. Predict motion. Fire at empty space and let the target fly into your bullets. Harlow fired. 3-second burst, 450 rounds. Tracers arced toward the turning Bf-109. Most missed. The target's evasion was too aggressive. Harlow's deflection calculation was wrong. He was new at this. First combat mission. First time shooting at a maneuvering target. Training range targets flew straight and level. This target turned like it wanted to live. Harlow overshot. Pulled up. Climbed away. Behind him, the German leader completed his turn, unscratched, alive, angry. Now Harlow was in trouble. He was at 16,000 feet, speed bleeding off, 320 miles per hour, 300, 280, 12 Bf-109s turning toward him. They had altitude advantage now. They were organized. He was alone, low on energy, low on airspeed. Classic mistake. He'd stayed too long, committed to a second pass when he should have run. Now, he'd pay for it. The German attack developed fast. 4 Bf-109s dove on Harlow from above. He saw them coming, saw tracers. 20mm cannon fire. White smoke trails. The rounds passed behind him. Close. The German pilots were good. They'd calculated his flight path, led him properly. He pulled hard right, 4 Gs, 5 Gs, then reversed left. Defensive scissors maneuver. He barely remembered it from training. Turn one direction, then immediately reverse. Make the attacker overshoot. Make them guess wrong. It worked. The 4 Bf-109s flashed past. They'd expected him to keep turning right. He'd gone left. They overshot by 300 yards. Harlow was still alive, but his energy was gone. Airspeed, 280 miles per hour. Slow for a P-47, dangerously slow. The P-47 was heavy, 7 tons empty, 8 tons loaded. It didn't turn well, didn't climb well at slow speeds. He was vulnerable, low and slow. The worst combination in fighter combat. He needed to extend, run away, build speed. He shoved the throttle to emergency war power. The engine roared. He pushed the nose down, dove toward the bombers at 15,000 feet. Lower altitude meant gravity helped. The P-47 accelerated. 300 miles per hour, 350, 400. The Bf-109s chased, but they couldn't catch him. The P-47 was faster in a straight line, much faster. 500 pounds heavier than a Bf-109, but also 150 horsepower more powerful. In level flight, nothing caught a P-47. Harlow extended away. The German fighters fell behind. He'd escaped. He climbed back to 20,000 feet. Took 2 minutes. Burned fuel. His gauge read 20%. The German fighters were below, attacking bombers again. They thought he was gone. Thought the crazy American had finally run away. They reformed their attack pattern. 6 plane flights, coordinating, professional. They dove on the bomber formation from above. Harlow watched. 3 B-17s took hits. 1 exploded. 1 fell away with 2 engines burning. 1 struggled to maintain altitude, trailing white coolant smoke. More men dying. He counted seconds. 15 seconds from the start of the German attack passed to the explosions. Efficient killing. The Luftwaffe had been doing this for 2 years. They knew their business. Harlow discovered something in that moment. He was faster than Bf-109s in level flight. They could outturn him. They could outclimb him at low speeds. But they couldn't catch him in a straight line. Tactic. Dive through the formation, attack, extend away, climb back up, repeat. Boom and zoom. Textbook P-47 and tactic. Lieutenant Davis taught it. Every P-47 pilot learned it. But Harlow was doing it alone, surrounded by 38 remaining German fighters. Nobody had ever tried boom and zoom against 40-to-1 odds. Doctrine said it was suicide, but doctrine assumed you had somewhere safe to run to. Harlow didn't, so doctrine didn't apply. He rolled inverted. Third pass, 11:52 hours, 5 minutes of combat elapsed. He dove from 20,000 feet, picked a target, Bf-109 lining up on a B-17. The bomber's tail gunner was firing. 50 caliber tracers reached toward the Bf-109, missing. The German pilot ignored the defensive fire, closed to 400 yards, prepared to fire his cannons. Harlow dove steeper. Building speed, 520 miles per hour, fastest he'd ever flown. The P-47 shook. Controls went stiff. Compressibility. The aircraft was approaching its maximum dive speed. Any faster, and the controls might lock up completely. He eased back slightly. 500 miles per hour. Pulled lead on the Bf-109. The German pilot was focused on the bomber. Didn't check 6 o'clock. Fatal mistake. Harlow fired at 400 yards, 4-second burst, 540 rounds. The convergence pattern was perfect. All 6 gun streams met at exactly 400 yards. The Bf-109 flew directly into the cone of fire. Hits, wing root, engine, cockpit. The engine exploded. Black smoke poured out. The Bf-109 rolled inverted. The pilot bailed out. Parachute blossomed white against blue sky. Harlow's second kill. He pulled up, climbed away. The bomber he'd saved continued flying. Tail gunner probably never knew how close he came to dying. The German fighters reacted faster this time. They'd seen the pattern. The lone P-47 dove from altitude, attacked, climbed back up. They tried to counter it. 4 Bf-109s climbed to 21,000 feet, positioned themselves above Harlow's climbing path, waiting. When Harlow climbed back through 19,000 feet, they dove on him. But Harlow saw them coming. He didn't continue climbing. He leveled off, extended horizontally at 380 miles per hour. The 4 Bf-109s dove through the altitude where he should have been, found empty air. Harlow was half a mile away, watching. They'd tried to predict him. They'd guessed wrong. The confusion on the German side was visible now. Radio chatter increased. Harlow could hear it even though he didn't understand the words. The tone was frustrated, angry. The lone American fighter kept attacking, didn't run away, kept coming back, and they couldn't stop him. They'd assigned hunters, 4 fighters whose only job was to kill Harlow. But Harlow's pattern was unpredictable. He attacked from different angles each pass. High right, low left, 6 o'clock level, 12 o'clock diving. The assigned hunters couldn't anticipate him, couldn't position themselves correctly. By the time they saw him, he was already attacking. By the time they dove to intercept, he was already extending away. One fighter creating chaos among 40. 4th pass came at 11:55 hours. Harlow climbed to 21,000 feet. Checked his fuel, 18%. Time elapsed. 8 minutes of combat. Time remaining, maybe 10 minutes. He was staying longer than planned. Couldn't help it. Every pass saved bombers. He could see the results. The German attack pattern was disrupted. Instead of coordinated 6-plane flights diving methodically on the bombers, the Bf-109s were scattered. Half were hunting Harlow, half were attacking bombers. The ones attacking bombers were looking over their shoulders, worried about the P-47, rushing their attacks, missing shots they should have made. The bomber formation was still taking losses, but slower. 1 bomber every 2 minutes instead of 1 every minute. The math meant lives. 18 men every 2 minutes instead of 18 men every minute. Harlow rolled into his 4th dive. This time, he didn't target a specific fighter. He targeted the formation's coherence. He dove toward a 6-plane flight that was setting up for an attack run. Didn't aim at the lead aircraft. Didn't aim at the wingman. Aimed at the space between them. Fired into the middle of the formation. Tracers flashed through the gaps. Psychological impact. All 6 fighters broke formation. They scattered. Survival instinct overrode discipline. Nobody wanted to be the one who got hit. The attack run disintegrated. No kills for Harlow, but the attack on the bombers was disrupted. 6 bombers that would have been targeted got a reprieve. Temporary. The Germans would reform, but it bought time. Harlow pulled out of the dive, climbed. His aircraft felt different, heavier, sluggish. He checked his instruments, oil pressure dropping, engine temperature rising. He looked at his right wing, saw holes, 3 of them. When did that happen? He hadn't felt hits, hadn't heard anything over the engine noise, but someone had shot him. 20mm cannon fire. 3 rounds through his right wing. He was leaking fuel. The gauge confirmed it. 16%. Should be 17%. The fuel leak was small but measurable. He had less time than he thought. 5th pass at 11:57 hours. He climbed to 18,000 feet. Lower than before, less energy. The engine was running rough now. Coughing, oil smoke trailed from the cowling. He could see it streaming past his canopy. The P-47 was dying. Question: how many more passes before the engine quit? Answer: maybe 2, maybe 1. He had to make them count. 8 BF 109s climbed toward him. They'd seen he was damaged, seen the smoke. They were aggressive now, pressing the attack. They wanted the kill, wanted to end this. Harlow didn't wait for them. He rolled into another dive. Attacked first, violated every instinct that said damaged aircraft should run, should hide, should preserve themselves. He attacked because running meant dying slowly. Attacking meant dying quickly, but taking someone with him. He targeted the lead BF 109, the aggressive one, the one climbing fastest. Range, 500 yards. He fired. 6-second burst, 810 rounds, longer than he should have fired. Ammunition discipline said short bursts, conserve ammo. But Harlow wasn't thinking about conservation anymore. He was thinking about killing that BF 109 before it killed him. The tracers converged. Hits, engine, cockpit. The canopy turned red inside. The pilot slumped. The BF 109 nosed over. No bailout. The pilot was dead. The aircraft fell. 3rd kill. Harlow's guns went silent. He pulled the trigger. Nothing happened. He checked the charging handles. All 6 were back. Empty. He'd fired 2,550 rounds in 11 minutes. Every bullet he carried. He had no ammunition remaining. He was defenseless. A fighter with no weapons. Useless. He checked his fuel. 13%. Checked his engine. Oil pressure, critical low. Temperature, critical high. Time, 1,200 hours. Noon. He'd been fighting for 11 minutes. He had maybe 4 minutes of flying time left. Maybe less. He turned southwest. Pointed his nose toward England. 180 miles away. Impossible distance. He throttled back. Tried to conserve fuel. Tried to keep the dying engine running. Speed, 280 miles per hour. 3 BF 109s followed him. They knew he was wounded. Knew he was running. They wanted the kill. Wanted revenge for the 3 fighters he'd destroyed. Wanted to finish the American who'd disrupted their attack for 11 minutes. The chase began at 12:01 hours. Harlow's P-47, damaged, slow, leaking fuel, guns, empty. 3 BF 109s, healthy, fast, armed, range, 1,000. 200 yards. Closing. Harlow had no weapons, no speed, no altitude advantage, no options. He just flew. Waited for them to shoot him. Waited for the 20mm rounds to tear through his aircraft. Waited to die. He thought about his father, about Cedar Rapids, about the farm, about the compass that Torres warned him about the choice he'd made to attack instead of run. He didn't regret it. 27 men died in the first 90 seconds. How many more would have died if he'd done nothing? 50? 70? He'd bought the bombers 11 minutes. How many lives was 11 minutes worth? The bomber formation saved him. The B-17s were returning from Schweinfurt now, mission complete. Bombs dropped, factories burning. The formation flew past Harlow's position. 200-plus bombers, 2,000-plus machine guns, overlapping fields of defensive fire. The three Bf-109s saw the formation, saw the danger. They broke off pursuit. Didn't want to face that much defensive fire. They climbed away. Harlow slipped past, still alive, barely. His engine quit at 12:04 hours, fuel gauge 0. The propeller windmilled, unpowered, just wind turning the blades. The engine noise stopped, sudden silence. Just wind noise now. Harlow was at 14,000 feet, 65 miles from Allied lines. He glided. The P-47's glide ratio was roughly 10 feet forward for every 1 foot down. 14,000 feet of altitude meant 140,000 feet forward. 26 miles. He'd fall short by 39 miles. He'd crash in occupied France. Germans would capture him, if he survived the crash. He considered bailout, but he was over a small French town. Might land on civilians, might hit a building. He decided to glide farther, bail out over countryside, minimize collateral damage. Altitude, 12,000 feet, 10,000 feet, 8,000 feet. The P-47 glided silent, except for wind noise. The world below scrolled past. Green fields, small villages, roads. He was still over occupied territory, still behind enemy lines. Unexpected help came at 7,000 feet. A thermal updraft, warm air rising from the town below. The P-47 caught it, gained 400 feet. Another thermal at 6,000 feet, gained 300 feet. Harlow wasn't a glider pilot. Didn't know thermals existed. Didn't know how to exploit them. But they helped anyway. He was at 9,000 feet now, 40 miles from Allied lines. Maybe he could make it. The final glide was mathematical. 6,000 feet, 30 miles from Allied lines. 3,000 feet, 15 miles from Allied lines. 1,500 feet, 8 miles from Allied lines. He could see the front, smoke from artillery, flashes from explosions, the line between occupied France and liberated France. 800 feet, 4 miles, 400 feet, 2 miles. He wasn't going to make it. 200 feet over French farmland. Harlow pulled the canopy release, prepared to bail out. But he was at 100 feet, too low. Bail out at 100 feet meant the parachute wouldn't have time to open fully. He'd hit the ground too hard, possibly fatal. He spotted a field ahead, decided to crash land, gear up. Didn't want the landing gear to catch and flip the aircraft. Flaps down, slow as much as possible. The P-47 hit the field at 110 miles per hour. 12:19 hours. The belly scraped earth, dirt sprayed, the aircraft slid. 400 yards. The tail section snapped off. The right wing crumpled. Metal screamed. Harlow was thrown against his harness straps. His head hit the gun sight. Everything went gray, then black, then silent. He woke to voices, French voices. Hands pulling him from the cockpit. He tried to stand. His legs didn't work. 2 men carried him. They moved fast, across the field, into trees. He heard German voices in the distance, shouting. The Frenchmen carried him faster, into a farmhouse, down into a cellar. Darkness. He passed out again. When he woke, a woman was bandaging his head. She spoke English. "You are safe. The resistance will move you tonight." Harlow tried to speak. His mouth was dry. She gave him water. He drank, asked the question that mattered. "The bombers. Did they make it?" She didn't understand. He tried again. "The B-17s. Schweinfurt. Did they make it back?" She shook her head. "I don't know about bombers. I know you shot down 3 German fighters. The whole village watched. 3 kills confirmed." That was something. He closed his eyes, slept. The resistance moved him that night, hid him for 3 days. British intelligence extracted him on August 21st. 4 days after the mission, he crossed into Allied territory. Safe, alive, lucky again. The debriefing room at RAF Horsham St smelled like cigarette smoke and burnt coffee. Second Lieutenant James Harlow sat across from two intelligence officers, Major Peter Caldwell and Captain Richard Stone. They'd been questioning him for 40 minutes. Neither believed his story. Caldwell leaned back in his chair. "Let me understand this correctly, Lieutenant. You're telling me you engaged 40 German fighters, alone, for 11 minutes. Harlow nodded. "Yes, sir." Stone flipped through papers. "And you claim 3 confirmed kills?" "Yes, sir." Caldwell lit another cigarette. "Lieutenant, I've been debriefing combat missions for 18 months. I've heard every exaggeration, every inflated claim. Pilots get excited. Adrenaline affects memory. We understand that. But your story is beyond credible." Harlow said nothing. Stone continued. "The second Schweinfurt raid lost 60 B-17s, 600 men. It was a disaster. Fighter escort turned back at the German border as ordered. The bombers flew alone for 150 miles. Standard procedure. Are you saying you disobeyed orders?" Harlow explained about the compass, the malfunction, the navigation error, getting lost, finding himself 80 miles inside Germany with no fuel to return, finding the bomber formation under attack, making the decision to engage. Caldwell stubbed out his cigarette. "So you're claiming equipment failure led you to accidentally attack 40 German fighters, and this accidental engagement resulted in 3 kills?" "I'm not claiming anything, sir. I'm reporting what happened." Stone stood. "Wait here, Lieutenant." Both officers left the room. Harlow waited. 30 minutes passed. The door opened. Colonel Hubert Zemke entered. Harlow stood at attention. Zemke waved him down. "Sit, Lieutenant." Zemke pulled out a folder. "I have 14 combat reports here, 14 different B-17 gunners. All report seeing a lone P-47 attacking German fighters over Schweinfurt. All report the P-47 made multiple passes. All reported engaged for approximately 10 to 12 minutes. He pulled out photographs, gun camera footage. "We recovered your aircraft from the French field. The gun cameras were intact. Film was damaged, but salvageable. 3 kills confirmed. 1 Bf-109 destroyed at 11:49 hours. Second at 11:52 hours. Third at 11:57 hours. Your story checks out." Harlow felt relief, then confusion. "Sir, if the evidence confirms it, why didn't Major Caldwell believe me?" Zemke smiled. Tired smile. "Because what you did was impossible, Lieutenant. 1 fighter doesn't attack 40. 1 fighter doesn't survive 11 minutes against those odds. 1 fighter doesn't disrupt an entire German attack formation. It doesn't happen. Except you did it. And now Fighter Command wants to know why it worked." The analysis began the next day. Major David Schilling, 56th Fighter Group Operations Officer, called Harlow to his office. Schilling was 24 years old, already an ace. 8 confirmed kills. He had maps spread across his desk, charts, combat reports. "Lieutenant, walk me through every pass, every decision. I need to understand the engagement sequence." Harlow described it. First pass. Dove from 23,000 feet. Attacked trailing fighter, climbed away. Second pass. Targeted formation leader, missed, forced to defensive maneuver. Third pass. Attacked fighter engaging bomber, killed it. Fourth pass. Fired into formation center, disrupted coordinated attack. Fifth pass. Killed lead fighter, expended all ammunition. Schilling took notes, drew diagrams. The German fighters outnumbered you 40-1. Standard doctrine says they should have killed you in the first 2 minutes. Why didn't they? Harlow thought about it. Surprise, sir. They weren't expecting me. They thought all escorts had turned back. When I attacked, they assumed I was leading a squadron. They scattered looking for the other fighters. By the time they realized I was alone, I'd already made 3 passes. Schilling nodded. Psychological impact. The Germans reacted to what they expected, not what existed. One fighter created the confusion of 12 fighters because the Germans assumed 12 fighters were present. He looked at Harlow. Did you plan that? No, sir. I was just trying not to die. But you stayed. You made 5 passes. You could have run after the first pass. Why didn't you? Harlow didn't have a good answer. The bombers were dying, sir. I had ammunition. Seemed wrong to leave. Schilling spent 3 days analyzing the mission. He interviewed bomber crews, studied the gun camera footage, reviewed German radio intercepts. His report concluded with 3 findings. First, surprise mattered more than numbers. The German fighters spent the first 4 minutes searching for additional American fighters instead of organizing a coordinated response. Second, unpredictable attack patterns prevented effective counter-tactics. Harlow attacked from different angles, different altitudes, never repeating the same approach. The Germans couldn't predict where he'd appear next. Third, psychological disruption exceeded tactical impact. Harlow's attacks killed 3 fighters, but disrupted attacks on 20-plus bombers. The indirect effect was larger than the direct effect. Schilling's report reached Fighter Command on August 27th. Prompted immediate questions. If one fighter could disrupt 40, what could 12 fighters do? What if escorts didn't turn back at the border? What if they pushed deeper into Germany, engaged aggressively instead of defensively? Standard doctrine said, conserve fuel, protect the bombers, avoid unnecessary engagement. But Harlow's mission suggested different doctrine. Aggressive engagement, deep penetration, independent attacks. Fighter Command decided to test it. September 3rd, 1943. Experimental mission. 4 P-47s from the 56th Fighter Group volunteered. Captain Henderson led. Harlow flew number 2 position. Mission: escort bombers to German border, then continue another 50 miles into Germany. Engage any Luftwaffe fighters encountered. Rules of engagement: aggressive, attack on sight. Don't wait for Germans to initiate. The 4 P-47s crossed the border at 14,000 feet. 20 miles inside Germany, they spotted 12 Bf-109s climbing to intercept a bomber formation. Henderson keyed his radio. Attack on my mark. We go in hard. We go in first. The 4 P-47s dove. The Bf-109s scattered. Same reaction Harlow saw on August 17th. The Germans expected defensive tactics, expected American fighters to protect bombers and avoid engagement. They didn't expect aggressive attacks. The psychological advantage was immediate. The engagement lasted 8 minutes. 4 P-47s versus 12 Bf-109s. Result: 2 German fighters destroyed, 3 damaged. 0 American losses. Henderson's combat report noted, enemy fighters appeared confused by aggressive tactics. Multiple enemies. Aircraft broke off attacks prematurely. Bomber formation proceeded to target without losses during our engagement window. Fighter Command read the report. Authorized expanded testing. September 10th. 8 P-47s, 50 miles deep penetration. September 17th. 12 P-47s, 75 miles deep. October 1st. 16 P-47s, 100 miles deep. Results were consistent. Aggressive tactics disrupted German fighter operations. Bomber losses decreased during engagement windows. But the P-47 had one unchangeable problem: range. Even with drop tanks, maximum combat radius was 475 miles. Schweinfurt was 400 miles from England. Deep penetration tactics burned fuel faster. The math didn't work. Fighter Command needed a different aircraft, longer range, same aggressive capability. The answer arrived in December 1943. P-51 Mustang. Combat radius: 650 miles with drop tanks, enough to escort bombers all the way to targets deep in Germany, enough to hunt Luftwaffe fighters over their own airfields. The doctrine Harlow accidentally discovered would find its proper platform. January 1944. The 8th Air Force began equipping fighter groups with P-51 Mustangs. Training emphasized aggressive tactics, deep penetration, independent fighter sweeps, attack Luftwaffe formations before they reached bombers, disrupt, confuse, create chaos. The pilots called it freelancing. Fighter Command called it offensive counter-air operations. The Germans called it a nightmare. For 2 years, Luftwaffe fighters owned the sky over Germany. They waited for American bombers, attacked when escorts turned back, controlled the engagement. Now American fighters pushed deep into Germany, attacked aggressively, refused to follow predictable patterns. The psychological impact was identical to what Harlow created on August 17th. The Germans spent more time defending themselves than attacking bombers. Big Week. February 20th through 25th, 1944. 6 days of massive bombing raids against German aircraft factories. 3,800 bomber sorties. 1,500 fighter sorties. P-51 Mustangs flew deep penetration missions, attacked Luftwaffe formations over Germany, engaged aggressively, created chaos. Results: 226 American bombers lost. But German losses were catastrophic. 355 Luftwaffe fighters destroyed. 189 pilots killed. The Luftwaffe never recovered. German fighter production couldn't replace the losses. More critically, pilot training couldn't replace the experienced pilots. The ones who died in Big Week were veterans. 2 years of combat experience. 3 years of training. Irreplaceable. March 1944. American fighters began targeting German airfields. Strafing runs, destroyed aircraft on the ground, killed pilots in their cockpits. Burned hangars. The aggressive doctrine that started with one P-47 attacking 40 Bf-109s evolved into coordinated offensive operations across Germany. The Luftwaffe retreated, conserved forces, avoided engagement when possible. By April 1944, German fighters rarely intercepted American bomber formations. The sky belonged to America. Harlow returned to combat in September 1943. Flew 68 more missions. His tactics on August 17th became training doctrine. Every new pilot learned about the Schweinfurt mission, learned about the broken compass, learned about the choice to attack instead of run, learned about surprise and aggression and psychological disruption. Harlow's total combat record: 11 confirmed kills, 69 missions, 0 losses. He survived every mission. The other pilots stopped calling him Lucky. The nickname changed. They called him Compass. Ironic. The broken compass that got him lost became the symbol of the navigation error that changed fighter doctrine. But Harlow never talked about it, never bragged. When pilots asked him about August 17th, he gave short answers. I got lost, found German fighters attacking bombers, attacked them, got lucky. He didn't mention the fear, Didn't mention thinking he was going to die. Didn't mention watching 3 bombers explode in the first 90 seconds. Didn't mention the decision to attack 40 fighters alone. Those details stayed private. The official record showed 3 kills, 11 minutes of combat, 1 damaged P-47 recovered from a French field. The unofficial record showed something else. Showed that doctrine doesn't cover every situation. Showed that sometimes improvisation matters more than training. Showed that one pilot making one decision can change how every pilot fights. December 19, 44. Harlow was promoted to captain. Given command of a flight, 4 P-51 Mustangs. His first mission as flight leader, deep penetration escort to Berlin. 280 miles inside Germany. His aircraft, P-51D with the call sign Broken Compass. Painted on the nose, a compass with the needle pointing the wrong direction. His crew chief asked him about it. "Sir, why commemorate equipment failure?" Harlow smiled. "Because that equipment failure taught me something. Sometimes the wrong direction is the right direction. Sometimes getting lost means finding what you needed to find." The mission to Berlin went perfectly. Harlow's flight engaged 8 Bf-109s. Aggressive tactics. Unpredictable attacks. The German fighters scattered. 0 bomber losses during the engagement window. 2 German fighters destroyed. After landing, Harlow filed his combat report. Noted that aggressive tactics continued to be effective. Noted that German fighters continued to react poorly to unexpected attacks. Noted that the doctrine developed from August 17th remained valid. The intelligence officer reading the report was Captain Stone, the same officer who hadn't believed Harlow's story in August 1943. Stone signed off on the report without question. Things had changed. What seemed impossible in August 1943 was standard procedure in December 1944. By early 1945, the Luftwaffe was broken, not because of numbers. Germany still produced fighters, still had fuel, still had ammunition. The Luftwaffe was broken psychologically. German pilots knew American fighters would attack aggressively, knew they'd face unpredictable tactics, knew they might encounter fighters anywhere over Germany. The certainty was gone. The control was gone. They flew defensive missions over their own country. American pilots flew offensive missions over Germany. The psychological positions had reversed completely. Harlow flew his final combat mission on April 23, 1945. Escort mission to Pilsen, Czechoslovakia. No enemy contact. The Luftwaffe didn't appear. German fighters stayed on the ground. Conserved aircraft for the final defense of Berlin. Harlow's war ended not with combat, but with absence. The enemy he'd fought for 20 months had stopped fighting. Not because they were destroyed, because they were defeated. There's a difference. Destroyed means no capability remaining. Defeated means no will remaining. The Luftwaffe had aircraft, had pilots, had fuel, but they'd lost the will to contest American air superiority. That psychological defeat started in February 1944 with Big Week. But the template for Big Week came from August 17, 1943, 1 P-47. 40 Bf-109s, 11 minutes, 3 kills, complete disruption. The war in Europe ended May 8, 1945. Harlow was 21 years old, had flown 69 combat missions, had shot down 11 German aircraft, had survived. He received the Distinguished Flying Cross. The citation mentioned extraordinary achievement during aerial combat on August 17, 1943, when Lieutenant Harlow engaged superior enemy forces and prevented significant losses to friendly bomber formations. It didn't mention the broken compass. Didn't mention getting lost. Didn't mention that the entire engagement happened because of a navigation error and a stubborn refusal to abandon bombers while he still had ammunition. After the war, historians studied the air campaign over Europe, analyzed missions, reviewed tactics, calculated results. The consensus: American air superiority was achieved through combination of numbers, technology, and tactics. The numbers: America built more aircraft than Germany. The technology: P-51 Mustang had superior range. The tactics: aggressive deep penetration missions disrupted Luftwaffe operations. When historians traced the tactical evolution, they found the inflection point. August 17, 1943. Second Schweinfurt raid. 1 P-47 attacking 40 Bf-109s. That mission changed thinking, changed doctrine, changed how fighter command employed escorts. The transition from defensive escort to offensive fighter sweeps started with Harlow's accidental engagement. But most histories didn't mention Harlow's name. They mentioned the 56th Fighter Group, mentioned Major Schilling's analysis, mentioned Big Week. The individual stories disappeared into aggregate analysis. That's how history works. Individual actions become statistical trends. Personal decisions become doctrinal shifts. James Harlow became a footnote, sometimes not even that. Just another pilot in another fighter group flying another mission. The broken compass that started everything disappeared completely from the official record. James Harlow faced a choice in August 1945. The war in Europe was over. Japan would surrender in weeks. The Army Air Forces offered him a regular commission. Stay in, make it a career. His wife wanted him home. They'd married in June 1944 during his 2-week leave. She barely knew him. He'd been gone for most of their marriage. Their daughter was born in March 1945. Harlow had seen her once, for 3 days. Then back to England, back to combat. His wife's letters said, "Come home," said their daughter needed a father, said she needed a husband. But staying in the Air Force meant continuing to teach, continuing to pass on lessons learned, continuing to save lives without firing a shot. Harlow stayed. The Air Force promoted him to major in 1946, assigned him to Fighter Weapons School, Nellis Air Force Base, Nevada. His job? Teach tactics to new fighter pilots. He taught them about energy management, about situational awareness, about aggressive engagement. He taught them about August 17, 1943, not as personal story, as tactical case study. He never mentioned it was his mission, just presented it as example. 1 fighter versus 40. Why did it work? Student pilots gave various answers: surprise, skill, luck. Harlow corrected them. It worked because the enemy made assumptions. They assumed 1 fighter meant more fighters nearby. They assumed defensive tactics. They assumed predictable behavior. Break enemy assumptions and you create chaos. Chaos is a weapon.